I still remember the moment everything changed. Standing in the rain outside his apartment building, soaked to the bone, calling his phone for the 20th time while he ignored me. 2 years of my life devoted to chasing a man who saw me as an option, not a priority. 2 years of changing myself, my clothes, my interests, my dreams, just to fit into his world. All while he gave me breadcrumbs of attention when it suited him, and disappeared when someone more interesting came along. That night, as thunder crashed overhead and my tears mixed with the rain, something inside me broke. Or perhaps it finally healed. A strange sensation washed over me, like waking from a dream that had seemed real. Memories, not memories I should have, flooded my mind. Memories of a future I hadn't lived yet. A future where I continued this destructive path, eventually becoming his wife only to discover his multiple affairs after wasting 15 more years of my life. I gasped, dropping my phone to the wet pavement. The screen cracked, a perfect metaphor for the shattered illusion I'd been living in. These visions couldn't be real, yet they felt more authentic than anything I'd experienced. Every painful detail crystal clear. The discovery of messages on his laptop 5 years into our marriage, the second chance I gave him that he squandered. The moment 10 years later when I found him in our bed with my friend. The hollow shell I'd become, sacrificing my dreams, my identity, my worth for a man who never valued any of it. That's when I knew. I had been reborn, given a second chance to rewrite my future. My name is Maya Chen, and in that moment of revelation at 22 years old, I made a decision that would change everything. I would not continue down this self-destructive path. I would not sacrifice another day chasing after James Miller. I would reclaim my life. I picked up my cracked phone and sent a single text. I deserve better than this. Goodbye, James. Then I blocked his number, turned around, and walked away from the building I'd been pathetically standing outside of for 2 hours. Walked away from the man I'd been obsessed with since freshman year. Walked toward an uncertain but suddenly hopeful future. The next morning, I applied for a transfer to Westlake University across the country. The school I'd originally wanted to attend before choosing State University, because that's where James was going. I'd sacrifice my first-choice school, with its renowned journalism program, just to follow a boy who barely noticed me until I made myself impossible to ignore through sheer persistence. My roommate Zoe thought I'd lost my mind when I told her my plans. You're transferring schools in the middle of junior year, because you and James broke up? Maya, that's crazy. You've been chasing him forever, and he finally started dating you 6 months ago. So you had a fight. Just apologize and make up like you always do. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw for the first time how codependent our friendship had become. Zoe had been there through every humiliating step of my pursuit of James. She'd held my hair when I got drunk at parties trying to impress him. She'd listened to me analyze every text, every casual interaction. She'd encouraged me to keep trying, to not give up. Not because it was healthy, but because my obsession with James had become our primary bond. This isn't about James, I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. It's about me. I lost myself trying to make him want me. I chose this university because of him, even though Westlake has the journalism program I really wanted. I've spent 2 years molding myself into someone I thought he'd love instead of becoming the person I'm meant to be. Zoe stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. But you love him? No, I replied with startling clarity. I loved the idea of him. I loved the challenge of making him choose me. But that's not real love, Zoe. That's obsession. And I'm done with it. That conversation was just the first of many difficult ones. My parents were confused by my sudden decision, but ultimately supportive once I explained that Westlake offered better opportunities for my career goals. My friends thought I was having some kind of breakdown. And James, when he finally realized I was serious about ending things, switched tactics from ignoring me to suddenly pursuing me with the attention I'd always craved. Maya, you're overreacting, he said when he cornered me at the campus coffee shop 3 days after I walked away in the rain. We had a small fight. I was busy with group project work. You can't throw away what we have over something so trivial. The old Maya would have melted at his attention, accepted any excuse, been pathetically grateful for this crumb of effort. The reborn Maya saw something different. I saw the manipulation, The way he was used to pulling me back in whenever I showed signs of independence. I saw the future that awaited if I weakened now. What exactly do we have, James? I asked quietly. A relationship where I constantly adjust myself to fit your life, while you make time for me when it's convenient. Where I'm expected to drop everything when you call, but you can ignore me for days. That's not a relationship. That's servitude. His handsome face registered shock, then anger. He wasn't used to this version of me, the one who could see through him. So this is it. 2 years of pursuing me, and now you're just walking away? Who are you suddenly? I smiled, feeling a strange sense of peace. I'm the real Maya. The one who's been buried under insecurity and obsession. And yes, I'm walking away, transferring to Westlake next semester to study journalism like I always wanted. Westlake? He laughed dismissively. You'll never get in mid-year. And even if you do, you'll be back. You always come back. His confidence was startling in its arrogance, but also painfully accurate about the old me. I had always come back, accepting less than I deserved just to be in his orbit. Not this time, I said, standing to leave. Goodbye, James. As I walked away, he called after me. You're making a huge mistake. You'll regret this. But for the first time, I knew with absolute certainty that I wouldn't. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. My transfer application to Westlake was accepted. My grades had always been excellent, even while my personal life was a mess. I found an affordable apartment near campus through a friend of my cousin who needed a roommate. I began the process of untangling my life from the web I'd woven around James. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, nights when loneliness tempted me to text him, days when I questioned whether these strange memories of a future that hadn't happened were just an elaborate psychological break. But each time I wavered, the visions returned with painful clarity. The hollow woman I would become if I stayed on this path. By January, I had moved to Westlake University and begun a new chapter. The journalism program was everything I'd hoped for, challenging, innovative, connected to real-world opportunities. My new roommate, Layla, was a senior graphic design major who had no interest in analyzing my love life and every interest in dragging me to art exhibits, local concerts, and community events I would have skipped in my old life to stay available for James. You need to experience everything, she said when I hesitated about attending a photography showcase downtown. How can you tell stories as a journalist if you don't immerse yourself in different worlds? She was right. And with each new experience, each class that pushed my skills, each conversation with people passionate about their work, I felt the old Maya receding further into the past. The obsessive girl who had defined her worth through a man's validation was being replaced by someone stronger. Someone with purpose beyond relationship status. 3 months into my new life, I got my first major opportunity. A chance to interview a prominent climate scientist for the university paper. The piece was picked up by a local news site, then featured in a national blog. My professor called me into her office after class. This is exceptional work, Maya, Professor Rivera said, tapping my article on her tablet. You have a natural talent for making complex issues accessible, without oversimplifying. I'd like to recommend you for the summer internship at the Atlantic Observer. My heart raced. The Atlantic Observer was one of the most respected news magazines in the country. Their internship program was notoriously competitive. Do you really think I have a chance? I asked, trying to contain my excitement. She smiled. I wouldn't suggest it if I didn't. Your transfer application essay was what first caught my attention. That personal reflection on recognizing when you're on the wrong path and finding the courage to change direction. There was a maturity to it that's rare in undergraduate writing. This article confirms my initial impression. You have something special to offer. I left her office floating on air. This was the validation that mattered. Recognition of my work, my mind, my potential. Not the crumbs of affection I had once begged for from a man who couldn't see my worth. That night, I called my parents with the news about the internship recommendation. Their pride was palpable even across the phone lines. We always knew you were capable of great things, my father said, his voice thick with emotion. Even when you seemed lost, we knew the real Maya was in there somewhere. The real Maya. The phrase echoed what I'd said to James in that coffee shop. Had I ever been the real Maya with him? Or had I been a carefully constructed facade designed to win his approval? As spring semester progressed, I threw myself into my studies and the internship application. I joined the university newspaper staff, made new friends who knew nothing about my James-obsessed past, and even went on a couple of casual dates with a guy from my media ethics class. Nothing serious. I wasn't ready for that, but healthy interactions that didn't involve me shrinking myself to be more appealing. If you're enjoying this story of transformation and finding your true path, please hit subscribe now. Your support helps me continue sharing these journeys of self-discovery and personal growth. It was April when I received the email from the Atlantic Observer. I had been selected for their summer internship program. I screamed so loudly that Layla ran into my room thinking I'd been injured, only to join me in jumping up and down on my bed in celebration when I showed her the email. "We have to go out tonight," she declared. "Dinner at Emilio's, then dancing at the Loft. This is huge." I agreed, riding the high of this achievement. Emilio's was an upscale restaurant I would have never chosen for myself in my old life. Too expensive, too sophisticated. The Loft was an art space turned nightclub that featured local musicians and attracted a creative crowd. Neither were places James would have approved of, which made them perfect for celebrating my new life. We were sipping cocktails at the Loft, taking a break from dancing, when Layla nudged me. "Don't look now, but the guy by the bar has been staring at you for 10 minutes. Of course, I immediately looked and froze. James, standing at the bar, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Do you know him?" Layla asked, noting my reaction. "My ex," I said quietly. "The reason I transferred here." Her eyes widened. "The obsession guy? What's he doing in town?" That was the question, wasn't it? State University was over 2,000 miles away. James had no connections to Westlake that I knew of. Yet here he was, in the last place I'd expect to find him. Before I could process what to do, he was walking toward us, that familiar confident smile on his face. Up close, I could see he'd lost weight, changed his hairstyle to something more sophisticated. He was dressed differently too. Gone were the standard jeans and hoodies, replaced by a stylish button-down and tailored pants. He looked like he'd stepped out of the fashion blogs I used to study obsessively to understand what kind of girl he might want. "Maya," he said, his voice triggering an unwelcome flutter in my stomach. "You look amazing." "James," I replied, working to keep my voice steady. "What are you doing here?" He gestured vaguely. "Visiting a friend who goes to Westlake. I remembered this was where you transferred. Thought I might run into you." The explanation was too casual, too convenient. James didn't have friends at Westlake. I would have known if he did during our relationship. Would have leveraged that connection to convince him Westlake was a good choice for both of us. "This is Layla, my roommate," I said, changing the subject. "Layla, this is James." Layla gave him a cool nod, her normal exuberance notably absent. "I've heard about you." "All bad, I'm sure," he said with a self-deprecating laugh that once would have melted me. Now it just seemed calculated. "Maya and I had a misunderstanding before she left." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," I corrected firmly. "It was a realization. But that's in the past. If you'll excuse us, we're celebrating tonight." "Celebrating what?" he asked, seeming genuinely curious. Layla jumped in before I could answer. "Maya got the summer internship at the Atlantic Observer. Super competitive, only 6 spots nationwide." I saw something flash in James's eyes, surprise, maybe even admiration. It was the look I had once desperately craved. Now it meant nothing compared to Professor Rivera's professional recognition, or my parents' pride. "That's impressive," he said slowly. "I always knew you were smart, but this is big." "Yes, it is," I agreed, feeling strangely calm in his presence. The magnetic pull that had once defined our interaction was noticeably absent. "It's what I came to Westlake for, opportunities like this." An awkward silence followed, broken when Layla grabbed my hand. "Our song is playing. We need to dance." She pulled me toward the dance floor, throwing over her shoulder. "Nice meeting you, James." As we disappeared into the crowd, I caught one last glimpse of him. Standing alone at our table, looking somehow smaller than I remembered. Later that night, as we walked back to our apartment, Layla broached the subject. So that's the famous James. The guy you restructured your entire life around. I nodded, staring up at the stars visible even through the city lights. That's him. And, she prompted, how did it feel seeing him again? I considered the question carefully, like looking at an old photograph of myself. I recognize the person in it, but I don't connect with her anymore. There was a time when running into James would have been all-consuming. I would have analyzed every word, every gesture for days. Now it's just a weird coincidence. I don't think it was a coincidence, Layla said skeptically. He came looking for you, Maya. The question is why? I shrugged, surprised by my own indifference. Maybe he's not used to being the one who gets left behind. Maybe his ego couldn't handle it. Or maybe he realized what he lost and wants you back, she suggested. The thought should have thrilled me. Past Maya would have seen it as vindication, the ultimate victory. Present Maya just felt tired at the prospect. Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything. I'm not that person anymore. Layla linked her arm through mine as we walked. Good. Because that person was selling herself short. This version of you, the one who goes after what she wants, who values herself, this Maya is a badass. I laughed, but her words settled something in me. I was different now, fundamentally changed in ways that went beyond a new school or new friends. And that change was worth protecting. The next morning, a text came from an unknown number. It was good seeing you last night. Can we talk? Coffee? James. I stared at my phone, an odd sense of déjà vu washing over me. In those strange memories of my future that had appeared that rainy night, there had been a moment like this. James coming back after I'd started to move on, pulling me back into his orbit when I was just beginning to find myself. In that alternative future, I had said yes, had been flattered by his pursuit, vindicated by his sudden interest now that I was no longer available. It had led to a reconciliation, an eventual engagement, and then the slow, soul-crushing reality of a marriage built on insecurity and emotional manipulation. I typed a simple response. No thank you, James. I wish you well, but I've moved on. Then I blocked the number, just as I had that night in the rain. The summer internship at the Atlantic Observer exceeded every expectation. I moved to New York for 3 months, living in a tiny sublet with 2 other interns. The work was demanding, exhilarating, and transformative. I wasn't getting coffee or making copies. I was researching alongside veteran journalists, pitching story ideas, even getting a byline on a collaborative piece about climate change's impact on coastal communities. My supervisor, Catherine, became a mentor who pushed me harder than any professor ever had. Your writing is solid, she told me during my midpoint review. But you're still holding back something essential. Your unique perspective. The best journalists don't just report facts. They bring their full humanity to the stories they tell. Her feedback resonated on a level beyond my professional development. Wasn't that exactly what I had failed to do in my old life? Bring my full, authentic self forward? I had been so busy trying to be who I thought James wanted that I'd suppressed my own perspective, my own voice. When I returned to Westlake for my senior year, I carried this insight with me. I approached my classes, my writing, my friendships with a new commitment to authenticity. No more performing, no more people-pleasing, no more shrinking to make others comfortable. The transformation was subtle but profound. I found myself speaking up more in seminars, challenging perspectives I disagreed with, forming deeper connections with people who appreciated the real me. My writing took on a distinctive voice that professors commented on. There's a maturity and insight here that's unusual for an undergraduate, my thesis advisor noted. It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were still moments of insecurity, times when old habits threatened to resurface. A particularly handsome teaching assistant paid attention to me, and I caught myself checking what he liked on social media, considering how to adjust myself to be more appealing. The difference was that now I recognized the pattern and consciously redirected that energy back to my own goals and growth. In November of senior year, I received an unexpected email from James. It had come to my school address, which I hadn't blocked. The subject line read simply, "I understand now." I hesitated before opening it, aware that my curiosity didn't mean I was sliding backward. The Maya who had obsessed over James would have frantically analyzed the subject line alone for hours. This Maya, the real one, could read an email without losing herself. Maya, it began. I've started and deleted this email 100 times over the past months. Nothing I write seems adequate, but I'll try anyway. I owe you that much. When you left, I was angry, confused, entitled. I couldn't understand how you could walk away after pursuing me for so long. I came to Westlake convinced I could win you back, that you were just trying to make a point. Seeing you that night at the loft was a wake-up call. You weren't pining for me. You weren't incomplete without me. You were thriving. The girl who had shaped her entire life around getting my attention had become a woman fully engaged with her own potential, her own path. It made me question everything. Why had I always kept you at arm's length when we were at state? Why did I only fully engage when you threatened to leave? What did that say about me? I've been in therapy since the summer. Turns out I have some serious issues with intimacy and control. I pursued unavailable women, or kept available ones like you at a distance because real connection terrified me. I played games because genuine vulnerability felt dangerous. I'm not telling you this to win you back. I understand now that ship has sailed, and rightly so. I'm telling you because you deserved better than what I gave you. And I want you to know I recognize that now. The internship, you're writing. You're becoming who you were always meant to be. I'm sorry I stood in the way of that for so long. Be well, Maya. And thank you for having the courage to walk away. It taught me something I needed to learn. James. I read the email twice, tears pricking at my eyes. Not tears of regret or longing, but a complex emotion I couldn't immediately name. Relief, perhaps. Closure. A recognition that the journey hadn't just changed me. It had created ripples that affected him too. I typed a brief reply. James. Thank you for this email. It means more than you know. I'm glad you're doing the work to understand yourself better. That takes real courage. I wish you well on your journey, as I continue on mine. Maya. I sent it without agonizing over word choice or hidden meanings. Then I closed my laptop and went to meet my study group, leaving the past firmly where it belonged. Senior year flew by in a blur of thesis work, job applications, and final moments with the friends who had supported my transformation. Layla had graduated and moved to Seattle for a design position, but returned for my graduation ceremony. My parents flew in, bursting with pride. Even my grandmother, who rarely traveled due to her health, made the journey to see me accept my diploma. As I stood on the stage in my cap and gown, scanning the audience filled with beaming family members, I was struck by how different this moment was from what might have been. In that other path, the one I glimpsed on that rainy night, I would have still been at State University, my identity still wrapped up in being James's girlfriend, my journalism dreams diluted to fit his expectations. The contrast was stark and affirming. I had chosen myself, chosen growth, chosen authenticity. And that choice had led to this moment of genuine achievement and connection. After the ceremony, as we gathered for photos and celebrations, Professor Rivera approached with a woman I didn't recognize. Maya, I'd like you to meet Elaine Winters, executive editor at Horizon Digital. She read your thesis on environmental journalism in the digital age and was impressed. My eyes widened. Horizon Digital was an innovative news platform known for its in-depth reporting on climate and social issues. Exactly the kind of journalism I hope to pursue. Your analysis of how digital formats can enhance rather than diminish substantive environmental reporting was compelling, Elaine said, shaking my hand. We have an opening for a junior reporter on our climate desk. Professor Rivera thinks you'd be a good fit. Would you be interested in interviewing? Would I be interested? It was a dream opportunity, the kind of position most journalism graduates spent years working toward. Absolutely. I managed, trying to maintain some semblance of professional composure despite wanting to jump up and down. I admire Horizon's work tremendously. Good. I'll have HR send you the details. She handed me her business card. Congratulations on your graduation, Maya. Looking forward to discussing your future at Horizon. As she walked away, I turned to Professor Rivera in shock. Did that just happen? She laughed at my expression. It did. And you earned it. Your thesis was exceptional, and your growth over these past 3 semesters has been remarkable. She squeezed my shoulder. Remember this feeling, Maya. This is what happens when you follow your authentic path instead of chasing someone else's approval. The words hit home, resonating with everything I'd learned since that night in the rain. My journey from obsessive, self-minimizing girl to confident, purposeful woman hadn't been easy. It had required letting go of familiar patterns, confronting uncomfortable truths, rebuilding my sense of self from the ground up. But the reward, this feeling of standing firmly in my own power, was worth every difficult moment. 2 weeks after graduation, I moved to Chicago to start at Horizon Digital. My small apartment in Wicker Park became the first space that was truly, completely mine, decorated to my taste, organized to suit my lifestyle, with no concessions to anyone else's preferences. I filled the walls with art that spoke to me, the bookshelves with volumes that challenged and inspired me, the kitchen with tools for the cooking experiments I'd always wanted to try, but never made time for when my focus was on being available for James. My work at Horizon was demanding but fulfilling. As junior reporter on the climate desk, I traveled to coastal communities facing rising sea levels, interviewed scientists developing innovative solutions, and crafted stories that put human faces to environmental data. Each article I wrote felt like a piece of myself, my perspective, my voice, my commitment to issues that mattered, shared with the world. Dating took on a different quality in this new life. I went out with men who interested me intellectually or made me laugh, without the desperate need for validation that had characterized my pursuit of James. Some connections lasted a few weeks, others a few months. All taught me something about myself and what I truly wanted in a partner. It was at a climate conference in San Francisco, a year into my position at Horizon, that I met Adrian. He was a marine biologist presenting research on ocean acidification. Brilliant, passionate about his work, with a quiet confidence I found instantly attractive. We struck up a conversation at the post-presentation reception that continued over dinner, then breakfast the next morning, then daily texts and calls after we returned to our respective cities. Unlike my relationship with James, this connection developed with a healthy reciprocity. No chasing, no games, no power imbalance. Just 2 people genuinely interested in knowing each other, building something authentic together. When Adrian was offered a research position at Chicago's Shedd Aquarium 6 months later, our relationship had the chance to deepen beyond long-distance constraints. He moved into his own apartment across town. Neither of us ready to combine our carefully built independent lives just yet, but we settled into a rhythm of shared time that respected both our work and our need for personal space. "I've never been with someone who doesn't try to absorb me," he commented one evening as we cooked dinner in my kitchen. "Most of my ex-girlfriends wanted all my time, got upset if I needed to focus on research. You're different, you understand because you have your own passion." His observation made me smile, thinking of how far I'd come from the girl who would have dropped everything, rearranged any plan, neglected any personal goal just to be available for James. I learned the hard way that real love doesn't require self-erasure. I told him, sharing condensed versions of my past obsession and subsequent transformation. Healthy relationships have breathing room. Adrian listened with empathy, without judgment. When I finished, he kissed me softly. "Thank you for becoming this version of yourself. She's extraordinary." 2 years into my career at Horizon, I received an unexpected email from Catherine, my former internship supervisor at the Atlantic Observer. She was now heading a special investigative unit, focused on environmental justice issues, and wanted me to join her team. "Your work at Horizon has been stellar," she wrote. "The series on climate refugees showed exactly the kind of nuanced, human-centered reporting we want to do. This position would involve more travel, more in-depth investigations, and frankly more risk, but also more impact. Think about it." The opportunity was both thrilling and intimidating. More travel would complicate things with Adrian. More risk meant potentially dangerous situations in politically unstable regions. More impact meant greater responsibility to get the stories right. Pre-rebirth Maya would have immediately sought someone else's guidance on the decision, looking for external validation. The real Maya took time to sit with her own feelings, to weigh the professional growth against the personal adjustments, to consider what truly aligned with her values and goals. After a week of reflection, I said yes to Catherine's offer. Then I had an honest conversation with Adrian about what it would mean for our relationship. I'll be traveling at least 2 weeks of every month, I explained as we walked along Lake Michigan. Some assignments might be in places with limited communication. It's asking a lot of a relatively new relationship. He was quiet for a moment, watching a sailboat on the horizon. Then he turned to me with clear eyes. Do you want this opportunity? Yes, I answered without hesitation. It's exactly the kind of journalism I've worked toward doing. Then you should take it. We'll figure out the rest. He squeezed my hand. My research keeps me rooted here for now, but that doesn't mean we can't make this work. I'm not interested in holding you back from your passion, Maya. That's part of why I love you. I stopped walking, struck by the words he'd said so naturally. You love me. He looked surprised, then smiled. Of course I do. I thought you knew that. In that moment, standing by the lake with a man who loved me for exactly who I was, ambitions, complications, independence and all, I felt the final piece of my transformation click into place. This was what real love looked like. Not desperate pursuit, not constant compromise, not shrinking to be more acceptable, but mutual respect, genuine support, room to grow individually and together. I love you too, I said, the words emerging easily, honestly. And thank you for understanding what this opportunity means to me. 2 months later, I moved to New York to start my new position with Catherine's team. Adrian and I committed to a long-distance relationship, with regular visits and a reassessment after 1 year. It wasn't the conventional path. Living in different cities, prioritizing our respective careers, building a relationship in the spaces between professional commitments. But it was authentic to who we were and what we valued. My first major assignment took me to Indonesia, documenting how indigenous communities were being displaced by both rising sea levels and corporate land grabs justified as climate adaptation measures. The work was challenging, sometimes heartbreaking, but deeply meaningful. Each person who trusted me with their story became a reminder of why I had chosen this path. Not for recognition or status, but to amplify voices that needed to be heard. If you found meaning in this story of transformation and authenticity, please subscribe now. Your support allows me to continue bringing these journeys of self-discovery to others who might need to hear them. When I returned from Indonesia, I had 2 weeks in New York before my next assignment. Adrian flew in for the weekend, and as we explored the city together, I found myself reflecting on the strange, miraculous journey that had led me here. Do you ever think about how different your life might have been if you hadn't made certain choices? I asked him as we sat on a bench in Central Park, watching children sail toy boats on the pond. Sometimes, he admitted. I was on track for a corporate research position before I decided to focus on conservation work instead. Completely different life trajectory. I nodded, thinking of that rainy night outside James's apartment. The night the memories of a future I didn't want had crashed over me, changing everything. I believe we get glimpses sometimes. Insights into paths we could take, warnings about where certain choices might lead us. He considered this, his scientist's mind engaged with what might sound to others like mystical thinking. Like quantum possibilities, he suggested. Multiple versions of our lives existing simultaneously, and occasionally we get a flash of awareness from another timeline. Exactly, I said, grateful for his openness to the idea. I had an experience like that once. A moment of clarity that showed me where I was headed if I didn't change course. And did you? Change course? He asked, curious. I smiled, leaning into his shoulder as we watched the children playing, their laughter carrying across the water. Completely. And I've never regretted it for a moment. Later that night, as Adrian slept beside me in my small New York apartment, I opened my laptop to find an email notification. The sender's name made my heart skip. James Miller. It had been 3 years since his last message, the one where he'd acknowledged his issues and wished me well. I hesitated, then opened it with the same calm curiosity I might feel about hearing from any distant acquaintance. Maya, it read. I hope this finds you well. I saw your byline on the Indonesia report in the Atlantic Observer. The work you're doing is incredible, giving voice to people whose stories might otherwise go untold. I remember how passionate you were about environmental journalism even back at State, though I never took it seriously enough then. Just wanted to say I'm not surprised by your success, but I am impressed by it. All the best, James. There was no hidden agenda in his words, no attempt to re-establish connection or reignite what had once been. Just a simple acknowledgement from someone who had known me before, recognizing the path I had forged since. I replied with equal simplicity, "Thank you, James. That means a lot. I hope you're finding fulfillment in your own journey." Then I closed my laptop, curled into Adrian's warm embrace, and drifted to sleep, grateful for the strange rebirth that had allowed me to claim the life I truly deserved. 5 years have passed since that rainy night when everything changed. I'm now a senior correspondent with the Atlantic Observer's Environmental Justice Unit, with a published collection of my field reporting and a reputation for ethical, nuanced coverage of complex issues. Adrian and I eventually settled in the same city, Seattle, where he leads marine conservation research, and I can base my increasingly global work. We married last year in a small ceremony by the ocean, surrounded by the people who had supported our individual and shared journeys. My parents, who had watched their daughter transform from an insecure, boy-crazy college student to a confident journalist with purpose. Layla, still my closest friend, who had helped me rebuild my identity when I transferred to Westlake. Catherine, the mentor who pushed me to bring my full humanity to my reporting. And several others who had entered my life only after I'd found the courage to walk away from an unhealthy obsession and toward my authentic self. Sometimes, in quiet moments between assignments, I still marvel at how completely my life changed direction because of that inexplicable moment of clarity, that glimpse of a future I didn't want that empowered me to create one I did. I don't know how or why I was granted such insight, such a chance to course correct before wasting years in pursuit of the wrong things. What I do know is this: we get the lives we have the courage to claim, not the ones that come easily or are handed to us by others' expectations, not the ones that require us to shrink or pretend or chase after validation, but the ones we consciously choose, day after day, by honoring our authentic selves and refusing to settle for less than we deserve. If you're standing in the rain right now, metaphorically or literally, wondering if you should keep waiting for someone to see your worth or recognize your potential, don't. Turn around. Walk away. Transfer universities, change career paths, end relationships that diminish you. Have the courage to claim the life that's waiting on the other side of letting go. Because I can promise you this: it's more beautiful, more fulfilling, and more authentically yours than anything you're clinging to out of fear or habit or misplaced love. I know because I've lived both versions. And this one, the one where I chose myself first, is the only one worth living. Last month, I returned to State University for the first time since transferring away. Catherine had arranged for me to give a guest lecture to the journalism department about environmental reporting in conflict zones. It felt surreal to walk those familiar paths as a completely different person. Not the lovesick girl desperately seeking validation, but an accomplished professional returning to share expertise. After the lecture, a young woman approached me, clutching my book of collected reports. "Your work is why I switched my major to journalism," she said, eyes bright with the same passion I now recognized in myself. "Especially the piece about the Malaysian palm oil plantations. The way you centered the indigenous community's stories while still explaining the complex economics. It made me realize this is the kind of reporting I want to do." As she spoke, I noticed the way she kept glancing at a young man waiting by the door, clearly there to support her, but watching with barely concealed impatience. Something in her demeanor was painfully familiar. The subtle self-minimizing, the nervous energy of someone trying to be quick so as not to inconvenience others, the constant awareness of being judged. "What's your name?" I asked her. "Lily," she replied. "Lily Kim." "Well, Lily, I'd love to hear more about your interests in environmental journalism. Do you have time for coffee?" She hesitated, glancing again at the young man by the door. "I should probably go. Ryan's waiting and we have plans." "Ryan can wait 20 minutes, I said gently but firmly. "This is your education, your future career we're talking about. If he cares about you, he'll understand that. Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, perhaps, of the subtle permission I was giving her to prioritize herself. You're right, she said, straightening her shoulders slightly. Let me just tell him I'll meet him later. As I watched her cross to speak with Ryan, I saw his face darken with annoyance, saw the familiar pattern of a young woman shrinking under disapproval, then rallying with newfound courage to stand her ground. Their conversation was brief, tense, and ended with him leaving alone while she returned to me, a mixture of anxiety and liberation on her face. He's not happy, she admitted as we walked to the campus coffee shop. But this is important to me. Yes, it is, I agreed. And so are you. Over the next hour, I listened to Lily's passionate ideas about combining data journalism with narrative storytelling to make environmental issues more accessible. Her intelligence and creativity were obvious, but so were the ways she had learned to downplay them, constantly qualifying her statements, apologizing for talking too much, checking her phone whenever it buzzed with texts that I could guess were from Ryan. As our conversation drew to a close, I made a decision. Lily, the Atlantic Observer, has a winter internship program. It's competitive, but based on what you've shown me today, I think you'd be a strong candidate. Would you be interested if I recommended you? Her eyes widened. Are you serious? That would be. Yes, absolutely. Good. Send me your portfolio and a formal application. But Lily. I hesitated, wondering if I was overstepping, then decided that someone needed to say what I wished someone had said to me years earlier. Can I offer some personal advice, separate from the professional opportunity? She nodded, curious. I recognize something in you because I've been there myself. The way you check your phone every time it buzzes. The way you qualified every opinion with, I might be wrong, but. The way you were ready to cut short a potentially career-changing conversation because Ryan was impatient. Her cheeks flushed with recognition. You are brilliant and passionate about important work, I continued gently. Don't let anyone, particularly not a romantic partner, convince you to make yourself smaller to fit their comfort level. Don't postpone your dreams or redirect your ambitions to accommodate someone else's insecurities. I did that once, and it nearly cost me everything that matters to me now. Tears welled in her eyes. How did you know? Because 10 years ago, I was you, I admitted, standing in the rain outside a boy's apartment, missing classes to be available whenever he might want me, changing my major to one he thought was more practical, transferring to his university instead of the one with the program I really wanted, trying so hard to be lovable that I lost myself completely. What changed? She asked quietly. I smiled, thinking of that miraculous moment of clarity that had altered my path. I had a wake-up call. I realized I was headed toward a future where I would always be second to his career, his convenience, his ego. And I decided I deserved more than that. So I transferred schools, reclaimed my original dreams, and built a life that reflected my true self rather than someone else's expectations. Lily was silent for a long moment, absorbing this. Then she pulled out her phone, looked at the string of increasingly annoyed texts from Ryan, and turned off the ringer. I think I need to do some thinking, she said with new resolve in her voice. That's a good place to start, I agreed. Just remember, you don't owe anyone the sacrifice of your potential. The right people will value your ambition, not feel threatened by it. As we parted ways, I felt a strange sense of completion, as if in that conversation with Lily, some cosmic circle had closed. I had once been the girl diminishing herself for love, then been reborn into a woman who chose herself. Now I had the chance to help another young woman recognize her worth before she lost years to the same pattern. Walking across the campus where my unhealthy obsession with James had consumed so much of my energy, I felt not regret but profound gratitude for the mysterious second chance I'd been given, for the courage I'd found to change direction, and for every choice that had led me to this moment of wholeness. That evening in my hotel room, I called Adrian, eager to hear his voice after a day of emotional time travel. How was it being back there? He asked, understanding the complex layers of my return to State University. Surprisingly healing, I told him, describing the lecture and my conversation with Lily. It made me realize how completely I've moved on from who I was then. There's no trace of that desperate girl left in me. I wish I could have known that version of you, he said thoughtfully, just to fully appreciate the journey you've made. I laughed. No, you don't. That Maya would have exhausted you with her neediness, then resented you for not filling the emptiness inside her. This Maya, the real one, is much better equipped for equal partnership. Well, I love this Maya, he said simply, and I'm proud of how you paid it forward today with that student. After we hung up, I opened my laptop to check emails before bed. Among the usual work correspondence was a notification from my alumni network. State University Class of 2017 Reunion. Save the date. I stared at it, considering what it would mean to return not just for a professional lecture, but for a social event where I would likely encounter James and others who had known me during my most self-destructive period. Would it be valuable closure, or an unnecessary revisiting of a chapter best left in the past? After some reflection, I decided to RSVP yes. Not from any lingering curiosity about James or desire to showcase my success, but because I was genuinely interested in reconnecting with classmates I'd lost touch with after transferring. My transformation wasn't just about escaping an unhealthy obsession. It was about embracing a fuller, more authentic life. That included acknowledging my past as part of what had shaped me, even as I had chosen a different path forward. The reunion was scheduled for next spring, giving me plenty of time to prepare emotionally for whatever it might bring. Adrian immediately offered to accompany me, his support as reliable as ever. Are you sure? I asked. It might be boring for you, listening to strangers reminisce about college days you weren't part of. I'm sure, he said firmly. Besides, I'm curious about the world that shaped early Maya, even the parts you've outgrown. His curiosity about all facets of me, past, present, and emerging, was one of the countless ways he demonstrated real love, so different from the conditional attention I had once mistaken for it. As I prepare for this next chapter, continuing my global reporting while building a life with Adrian, mentoring young journalists like Lily, perhaps eventually starting a family, I remain profoundly aware of how differently things could have unfolded, had I not experienced that inexplicable moment of clarity on that rainy night. Had I not found the courage to walk away and transfer schools, had I continued prioritizing the pursuit of James's approval over my own dreams and growth, the alternate future I glimpsed that night occasionally still haunts me. The hollow-eyed woman trapped in a marriage with a man who never truly saw her, who cheated repeatedly while gaslighting her into believing she was the problem, who systematically dismantled her confidence until leaving seemed impossible. A woman who had abandoned her passion for journalism to support his career, who had surrendered her voice to maintain a fragile peace, who had accepted crumbs of affection as if they were a feast. That woman, that possible Maya, serves as both cautionary tale and measure of how far I've come. She reminds me to never again compromise my essential self for approval, to recognize manipulation disguised as love, to value partners who encourage my growth rather than feel threatened by it. I don't know if everyone gets the kind of second chance I received, that bizarre glimpse of a possible future that allowed me to change course before living through the pain. But I do believe everyone has moments of clarity available to them, if they're willing to listen to their deeper wisdom rather than their fear or habit or misplaced loyalty. For some, that clarity comes through friends who hold up mirrors to unhealthy patterns. For others, it comes through books or therapists or chance encounters with strangers who speak truth at precisely the right moment. For me, it came through an inexplicable vision on a rainy night that changed everything. However it arrives, the essential question remains the same. When clarity comes, will you have the courage to act on it? Will you walk away from the familiar path that diminishes you? Will you transfer universities, literally or metaphorically, to pursue what truly calls to your authentic self? Will you stop chasing validation from those who can't or won't fully see your worth? I did. And that single choice, to turn away from obsessive pursuit of someone else's approval and toward my own path, transformed everything. Now, as I move through the world as a woman firmly grounded in her value, pursuing work that matters, loving and being loved authentically, I carry this truth with me. We all deserve lives we don't have to shrink ourselves to fit into. We all deserve to be fully seen, fully respected, fully valued. And sometimes, claiming that life requires walking away from everything we thought we wanted, towards something infinitely more meaningful, ourselves, reclaimed at last. If this story resonates with you, please subscribe to hear more journeys of transformation. And share in the comments. What wake-up call changed your path? What choice led you toward your more authentic self? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find the courage to claim their own best life.